We need to shock the people. So let's shock the people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the reunion episode of Kisstory Science Theater.
Woo! Woo! Wait, just before we start, I just want to give a shout out to all our subscribers out there.
Especially Kiss Bear, who keeps giving us those wonderful comments. That's awesome.
BC Klein also, some of the guys who've been with us since the beginning. We really appreciate it.
Spread the word. I'm Lee.
I'm Adam.
I'm Dez.
And we're here to talk about the one thing that we thought that would never happen in 1996.
I always knew it would happen.
I always thought it was going to happen.
Oh, come on.
I thought it was inevitable.
Come on. Every time I brought it up, you would be like, no, it's never going to fucking happen.
Ever since I
too
read
much
Ace,
money to be made.
Exactly. Ever since I read an interview with Ace in like 93, something like that, when he said like it would be great, we'd get together, make a few million, it'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
And as soon as I knew Ace was open for it, I knew it would happen.
Yeah.
Because once you got Ace, you got Peter, and there you go.
To me, it was always like their ace in the back pocket, right?
Yeah.
It was always that's
the card up
you-
their sleeve.
Exactly.
It's always going to be that way.
Yeah.
See, now that's I got a totally different perspective on that from when, because when you'd introduced me to Kiss in high school with all that, and we were doing all these makeup shows and things like that, and I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool if they put the makeup back on? And you're like, it's never gonna happen. Ace and Peter, they don't want to have anything to do with it.
Well,
There's so much bad blood. It's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Especially then, especially in the early 90s.
Yeah,
I think that's when the bad blood really got to be.
Yeah, but they were really shitting all over each other in interviews. And, especially between Gene and Ace, it got pretty nasty for a while.
Seemingly out of the fucking blue, really.
Yeah.
It was just, I don't get
After
where it
all
came
these
from.
years, why is Gene even talking about Ace? Like,
Yeah.
What does he have to gain? Like,
Well, there was all the stuff they said in the extreme close-up video.
what did they say?
Oh,
haven't
just
seen
that,
that either.
about the drugs and alcohol and blah, 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 and then Gene and Paul start taking credit. Well, yeah, it is, but then Gene and Paul start taking credit for stuff that was just like, don't call it Beck, call it Beth.
Yeah.
Calling it Beth was my idea.
Yeah. Like,
Ace designed the logo, but then Paul refined it.
That's
and we're
right,
still using
yeah.
Paul's refined logo.
Exactly,
But as podcast,
Kind of carrying over from the smashes, thrashes, and hits thing, where it's like, we're not going to give these guys the time of day. Like, Beth was such a super big hit, but we'll get Eric to re-record it.
and it'll be bigger and better.
Where even though Newer Groove made it to number 13 or something like that.
Big fucking hit.
Yeah,
Wasn't on
Go
smashes,
fuck yourself,
thrashes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
so the impossible happens then.
It did.
Yes.
The impossible happens. The Grammys.
Yes.
Tupac
Well, I mean,
reintroduces the world to Kiss.
But, I mean, it started on the convention tour.
The conventions, yes.
Yeah.
The Kiss convention, another thing that Kiss sort of took away from the fans.
Yeah.
Who were already doing them in great quantities, and then suddenly went, well, we're going to do the official one.
Yeah.
And went
and copyright the shit.
and copyright the shit, and then
Register it.
and then what did they?
Fuck you.
Wasn't there a convention where they went to this one guy's table and they took all of his stuff because he'd raided it from one of their warehouses? You got video of this.
That was
It was purchased legally and
Purchased legally, and then they decided to repo it or something.
Well,
much,
they stopped paying their storage fees, and somebody came in and bought it.
And bought it all.
Yeah.
Legally. So it wasn't actually fucking stolen. That's bullshit.
But Kiss
So that's
being
a whole
Kiss,
different-
if you're watching this and you don't know how it happened, then what the fuck? But they brought Peter up at one time
To sing Hard Luck Woman.
Yeah, exactly. And as soon as they did that, they all knew, right? Like,
And said, we can do that.
Yeah.
We can do this.
Yeah.
Which led to the Unplugged show.
exactly.
I think it was more like Peter was in a good frame of mind. and
Yeah.
He was receptive to everything, and then it kind of led into.
Or was he just broke?
little of both.
Probably. I know Ace filed for bankruptcy, like shortly before their reunion as well. And
He doesn't even fucking mention that in the book.
No, he doesn't.
No?
Really?
No.
Well, he did. So. I've said this, I think, to you and you
Yeah.
on multiple occasions. I fucking hated every minute of it. I knew it was going to happen come hell or high water. That it was going to happen at some point. It had to.
Yeah.
Because Kiss, as a domestic touring entity, was
Dead.
Done.
yeah, that was
They
over.
were dead.
Yeah.
That's why they were kind of diversifying themselves and shifting gears to make money in through different venues, like
The Kiss convention.
the convention. Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that
After
they
the Revenge tour, it was pretty apparent that it was over.
Yeah.
You cut it short. You lose money on that tour. You cut it short, and then that's going to be it. And traditionally, that's when Kiss, shifts gears. That's where kind of like Revenge is a bit like Creatures looking in the mirror to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Revenge was the last gasp before they sort of gave in to the inevitable.
Yeah.
Just like Creatures was.
Unfortunately, because they were like firing on all pistons, and it was
From a musical point of view and a songwriting point of view, they were starting to do some of the best work they'd ever done.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to happen too, right? Like, as soon as the reunion was announced, I was like, God damn it, we're going right back to calling Dr. Love.
Yeah.
From a song, songwriting wise.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to be Suck Me,
But
Fuck Me.
but it wasn't even songwriting wise. It was just them diving back into what they'd already done. They didn't bring anything new to the table.
Well, Psycho Circus was part of the deal, though. That was part of the
but
original
that's
contract.
an episode all in
is,
unto itself. But I mean, we're looking.
But I knew at the time that Kiss creatively was finished.
Yeah.
That it would just be looking backwards from this point on.
But
it would not be looking
so how by that point it's like 20 years worth of material. So
Yeah.
you could easily have called it quits, and that would have been the end of it.
Sure. Yeah.
yeah.
But
So is this is the reunion tour then? Could you speculate that it's really just Kiss taking the novelty and basically taking the novelty of like a Vegas style show, but it's still theirs, and taking it worldwide for everyone to see, and then cashing in on that novelty?
I think it was. I mean,
Right
cashing
away.
in. I think is the correct.
Because
thing
if you
here,
look at the tour dates, I mean, any members of the Kiss Army have got to have a copy of the Second Coming with that booklet with the listing of the number of places they went and played. I mean,
was
it's
just
not a
first
wonder
one.
that
That wasn't even
that
Los
became
Angeles.
the highest
You know.
grossing tour of that year.
Yeah.
They were the biggest tour. Why? Because they played almost every
not only
fucking
that,
day.
they were Kiss. They were Kiss. They were back. It was a thing.
Yeah,
it was like when the Stones come to town, right? It's Kiss.
But
you
Des
gotta
brought
go
up
see them,
brought up an interesting point in one discussion we had where it was just like part of the thing where it's like, if you take Kiss from '93, with the Revenge and that sort of thing, if you were still a Kiss fan then, that meant something. That was you were loyal to the
No
end.
shit. Yeah.
That was your thing. You appreciated the band for who they were, what they did. That was it. Suddenly they put the makeup back on. It becomes a novelty because it's like this 20-year cycle. Everything old is new again, and suddenly everybody wants a piece.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's no longer yours, and it's everybody's.
Like I said to you, it was like Kiss up to the reunion was really cool because
They had
using
this
the
history,
metaphor,
they had
it
this,
was a really small private party with a bunch of your close friends.
Yeah.
And it was really personal to you because nobody gave a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reunion happened,
And suddenly
and
everybody's.
your
But
little
I'll tell
private
you-
party was. The door was kicked in by the fucking football team. They slammed down a
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
keg in the middle of the fucking living room. Started pumping it. All the fucking cheerleaders were all around.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are all these fucking people doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should be fucking kicking my face in for loving Kiss, not loving Kiss yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me anymore.
Yeah.
Because suddenly it's the cool, popular thing.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, or 6 months ago, or a week ago,
you guys could give it a shit.
nobody gave a shit. You wouldn't go
You
to a
would've
Kiss
laughed.
concert for fucking free if they
Yeah.
weren't wearing makeup.
Yeah.
And now everybody's fucking showing up. And that's what really pissed me off.
Does that still piss you off in the sense that, like just from carrying on the fact that they kept the makeup on, that they've kept going on? Does it feel like it's just an extension more of the reunion tour, or just? I mean, because creatively, it doesn't feel like they've jumped ahead anymore.
No. They've totally stagnated ever since
Yeah.
they put the makeup on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's stagnated. The stage show, the costumes, everything is just like whatever.
Because it seems like, at least, back in the day, when you went from album to album, they had there was growth, there was a new look, there was, what's the next design going to be? How is this going to get modified? What are the costumes going to look like or whatever? And now it's like, well, we're just going to go back to the well, we're going to put on the Love Gun outfits, we're going to put on the Destroyer outfits, we're going to put this on again. And
that's when I got disinterested.
Yeah. Because suddenly it was
like greatest hits album after greatest hits album. It was a greatest hits tour after greatest hits tour. I've heard it all before. I've seen it all before. It's not as good or as interesting now.
Rock City do we need?
Yeah. And the reunion tour to me was just like it was like, don't get me wrong. It's really cool that the same guys are getting together, putting on the makeup and all that stuff, and it's great. I knew it was going to happen. Yeah. But for a fan like me who was hungry for something new after Revenge, it was just like, that's gone. Yeah. Now I'm going to get like the same guys wearing the same outfits, not looking as good as they did back in the day, not playing as well as they did back in the day. And this is going to be all I'm going to get for the next few years.
But you got to admit, at the very least, the fact that, say you had the reunion started and finished, period, that if it from 96 to 97, if that year, if the reunion had been kept contained, had it been contained in that spot,
then they let Ace
either let Ace and Peter go, or had they removed the makeup and decided, okay, we're going to do something, either something, completely different with the lineup. Like, even say, for instance, I think it would have been really fucking cool if they had kept, say, the 6 members,
I've often thought that myself.
Like
Super Kiss from the Unplugged sessions.
Yeah,
is really
I think
cool,
that would have been fantastic. In terms musically, because you'd have the input from Ace and Peter. Yeah. Plus Eric and Bruce.
Like a split set, open up the set with Eric and Bruce, and then have switch
sort of pepper it out in between. I
join up everybody at the end or whatever.
Because that's something I think no one would have ever seen before.
Yeah.
Whereas
this, it was like, okay, for a year, fine. You're going to go out into the world. You're going to feed the hunger for the Kiss fans, whether they're new or old or whatever, who didn't get an opportunity to see them live.
Yeah, in makeup.
Just to see, well, let's see what that show would have been like. And granted, great, love it. That's great. You're gonna do it, but make it short. Because the longer you extend it, the less of a novelty it becomes.
It doesn't. It's not.
And it's exactly, and I think that's exactly kind of what happened with them. Like when they first came in '73, it was a novelty. It was a novelty that people picked up on, and and it was like, oh, this is really cool. Destroyer hits, it explodes.
Yeah.
And then it becomes tired and worn out after 3 or 4 years, because it becomes a thing of like, well, the general public loves it.
Right.
They chew it up, and then it gets left to the side for the next thing to come in.
Yeah.
Like
any trend happens. Like
any trend happens.
Yeah.
And granted, I loved a lot of the stuff that came out of this.
Some of the merch and
some of the merchandise. A lot of that was the remasters coming out. That was all the great benefit.
Well,
that was fantastic.
About this period,
but you can't say that they didn't look absolutely. I mean, they didn't necessarily look on their game completely. No. But I mean, Paul still looks like he was in great shape.
25 years old.
Yeah. Ace is kind of iffy.
Yeah.
Peter.
God, I watched the Weenie Roast earlier today. Ace is more than iffy in that one.
Yeah. But Gene barely moves.
Psycho Circus tour after.
Yeah. Gene barely moves around, which was kind of embarrassing.
But Gene, just like in general, it's like the audacity.
We rag on him so much in this show.
The fucking audacity for him to even try to pull off that costume.
No shit.
In the shape that he was in.
Yeah.
For me, just the fact that it was the same guys, but not looking as good as they did, not playing as well as they did.
Well, I wouldn't go so far about the sounding as good. I mean,
the stage was fucking nothing.
Bunch of amps.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Big deal. You got the drum riser going up at the end, but it's
but you got the huge video screen, which they never had back in the day.
Yeah, but there's nothing else to look at.
Everybody's got a big video screen these days.
Having like the Love Gun stage, like they presented in Detroit Rock City, the movie,
would have been sweet.
That would have heightened the whole experience for me. Absolutely, that would have been fucking. And
that
open with "I Story of Love" with like the things coming down, and the smoke, and that would have been fucking amazing.
That would have that. And how hard would it have been to do that to get the fans in, like the hardcore fans like us,
Yeah.
or like fucking practically anybody watching this video, I'm sure, to give us a taste of that old thing.
No,
And
they gave us 20-foot inflated versions of themselves outside
Woo! They could hardly fucking stand
They
up.
could stand up.
Like Doc McGee says in the documentary, he's like, well, we didn't have a designer anything.
They basically
it's pretty fucking obvious that you didn't.
Yeah, no shit.
Because there's fucking nothing on the stage for this fucking tour at all.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about the greatest hits listing, I mean, if you pull out your copy of Kiss Alive Worldwide '96 from Metal Edge, we've got a complete listing of what they played on that tour, the set list. As of April 23rd, 1996, it was Deuce.
That was like right at the beginning of the tour.
King of the Nighttime World, Do You Love Me, Calling Dr. Love, Cold Gin, Strutter, Love Gun, inserted just before Parasite, Shout It Out Loud, Watching You, Firehouse, with a note saying Peter, practice end of solo section, 2000 Man, She, Shock Me, Nothing to Lose, Rock Bottom, Peter and something, God of Thunder, 100,000 Years, then followed with New York Groove, I think, I Stole Your Love, and A Rock and Roll All Night.
So
with encores, here are the encores, Detroit Rock City, Beth, and Black Diamond.
So exactly 2 songs that did not come from the first classic 6 Kiss albums. And those both being Ace songs, interestingly.
Yep, there you
New
go.
York Groove and 2000 Man.
Yep.
I mean, I guess vocally he didn't really contribute until Love Gun, with Shock Me.
With Shock Me, yeah.
So it makes sense that his stuff would come from the later period. But it is interesting that,
Did they share vocals on Cold Gin?
They did, yeah.
On
Gene
the
and
reunion
they
tour?
split the vocals on that.
But to commemorate the 1996 reunion, we get a wonderful new compilation called You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best,
Hey,
which I think design-wise for the album, or for the CD I should say, if you've got this now, from what Des has told me, it has been removed from the catalog.
Yeah,
you cannot order this anymore.
Why not, too? Like, why would it be included in the catalog? It's just a best of Alive and Alive.
True,
2.
but it does have tracks.
It does have 3 pretty cool new tracks. Well,
quote unquote new track.
yeah. I mean,
archived tracks.
yeah.
From the archive.
With
And a special interview, a 20-minute interview with Jay Leno.
Yeah. I mean, Ace, that's the one bit of dirt that Ace includes in his book, is that he specifically remembers, even though he was still drinking at this point, whatever he might have said at the time.
What did he have to say about this? What did he have to say about this?
He remembers doing overdubs for You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best. Mm-hmm. It was just simple stuff like vocals and that sort, but there is absolutely a lot of sweet.
I knew right away when I first got
when
the
you
album,
first heard it.
I was like, this is
As
not
soon as you hear Gene,
old.
there's
Paul, right? Even
Paul's
Paul,
raspier,
even Paul's raspier,
his voice is
and you
aged.
can't tell me that because
And the bogus audience tracks that they lay over this shit just pisses me off.
It's like you can fucking hear the loops.
It sounds like fucking rain.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. I mean, who applauds or screams through an entire fucking performance?
Nobody.
Entire concert.
Yeah.
It's
but
absurd.
the way it's, I mean, you say for the way it's mixed, but you can notice a definite difference between versus the Alive and Alive 2 tracks that they provide in this. Where, I mean, granted, we all know that those were sweetened as well, but they're sweetened to a point where you almost cannot tell.
Well, and they were sweetened
all.
in the 70s,
yes,
as opposed to in the 90s.
Exactly. So I mean, there's a noticeable difference with, well, how's that gonna sound? You listen to Paul's vocals on Room Service, and it sounds like
Gene on Two Timers.
Yeah, and they sound like they came from Alive 3.
Yeah,
they sound like they came from Alive 3. So right away, it's like that's not right. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound like any of this stuff. Even Peter's drumming doesn't sound right. It doesn't have that, because his drum kits in the 70s sounded tinnier in some ways, at least in those mixes.
Sure.
There's a certain.
And I've heard people talking about
there's a reverb
Ace's
there.
Guitar tone as well as
Ace,
a little bit different on Alive.
Ace said that he did not do guitar overdubs for You Wanted the Best, but
okay. But it just
tone isn't the same though.
No, it just feels like, well, okay, if you want to argue that, yeah, it was mixed in the 90s, fine. But you can't tell me that those are the original vocal tracks.
No, well, that's the point. Is those vocal tracks were recorded in the 90s too.
So I mean, that's sort of what makes it sad. But
were you hyped to pick up the album though back in the day?
oh yeah, completely.
Yeah.
I was so hyped to get
I was
this.
pretty excited. Well, I was excited to hear the new tracks.
Yes.
You know, I mean, they're. You know,
I'm a little disappointed that we got Room Service and Two Timer.
You know
let me
what?
know. Let me know is okay, but
let me know
but Take Me is
Take Me
kicks ass.
I've
Yeah.
always
Yes.
liked
Always
that
does.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's granted.
What a
I don't care if
great
it's
riff, like,
that's
just
one song on there.
beautiful.
I don't care if it's sweetened. It sounds really good.
Yeah.
It really sounds good.
So you want to know what the top 5 Billboard chart was? In May?
96? Sure.
I picked May again for this one because it seemed like, you know, they were about to embark on the tour.
Well, isn't it May when they announced it on they were on the boat, the battleship?
right.
On the battleship, and they did
April or May?
Well, wait a minute. We got the magazine right here. It should say, shouldn't it?
So first of all, around this time, Gene was 46 years old.
Oh, Jesus.
Paul was 44. Ace was 45, and of course Peter was 51 years old,
51 years old.
being the oldest member of Kiss. So anyway, the Billboard Top 5 for that week, midway through May 96, was...
April. April is when they hold the press conference.
Okay,
On the
perfect.
Intrepid. So there you go. Okay, so what were the songs? What were the songs?
number 1 was Always Be My Baby by Mariah Carey.
Oh, God.
Number 2 was Because You Loved Me by Celine Dion. Number 4 was Nobody Knows by the Tommy Rich Project, which, again,
Who?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Number 4 was Ironic by Alanis Morissette. And number 5 was 1, 2, 3, 4, Something New by Coolio, which is another track.
Oh, I vaguely know that. I vaguely know that
Yeah.
one. The music video, he's riding around on a fucking tricycle.
bike or something
Little
like
tricycle.
Big wheel.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk a little bit about like the interaction of the band. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to keep in mind this is something like they're in their
They're
late 40s,
yeah.
early 50s.
These are full-grown. These are adult men at this
Yeah.
point. They're
going back and doing something that they did with somebody with the people that they were with in their
20.
in their 20s,
early 20s
when they were kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is this a recapturing of trying to recapture their youth?
Maybe.
Is it a midlife crisis?
Well, I think it's a financial.
It's a financial
financial
but also
Yeah.
maybe a bit of a midlife
Yeah.
crisis. I mean, by all accounts, I mean
I know.
Peter was really trying hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Peter
To do it right
really
this
wanted
time.
it. He wanted
Yeah.
he wanted to be there. I mean, he needed the cash, no question.
But honestly, I think he out of any this is a shining moment for Peter. And
I think he does really well on this
Yeah.
tour. Like
Yeah.
he's playing great.
He was a member of the
sounds
band
great.
that I always kind of fucking ignored, to be honest.
I'll tell.
In the beginning, I mean, he was
it's
like the
pretty
original
easy
drummer of the
to,
Catman,
like,
blah blah blah.
yeah.
You got Paul and Gene. They're such strong personalities. Ace is such an interesting sort of persona and character, you know. And
Yeah.
And then
After
there's
watching the second, it wasn't until like the
Watching the second coming, yeah.
that I really became a fan of Peter Criss.
Yeah. You guys both saw the reunion tour, right?
Yeah.
I did not see the reunion
Okay,
tour.
again,
I did not see the reunion tour. I did not see Kiss play live until the farewell tour.
I've never seen Kiss play live.
Never.
Never. I saw Ace, but you know, that's really all I need to tell you.
No, it was
I heard
good,
the
it was
chorus
fair.
from Speed Back to
By
My
the
Baby
time
Live, so that's
the
cool.
tour got, by the time the tour got around to us,
Because it was like the second leg of the tour.
yeah,
like the
it
Lost
was like
Cities part.
97, yeah, Lost Cities.
Had they worked out the bugs?
So I already had
Bootlegs of the.
I had like 3 VHS bootlegs.
So you already seen the show?
Yeah.
Okay, so now
No surprises
No
whatsoever.
surprises. Okay, so nothing different happened in the Edmonton
Well,
show versus any of the bootlegs that you
Ace
saw.
talks about that in his book. Is by this point everything was so, and the same as like in the 70s during the Dynasty, you know,
Yeah.
Unmasked era.
Yeah.
Everything was so big and so there were so many pyro effects, so many
Yeah.
explosions that you had to do the exact same thing every night. Otherwise, you'd wind up
Yeah.
with your fucking head on fire.
Right.
Like you had to move the exact same way, hit the mic at the same spot. And if you watch the videos, they do. You know, like they're, you know, it's great. They're pros. But it loses some of that spontaneity, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, and it loses some of the charm, the live feel that we all
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
that anything can happen. You know, you're
Well, the farewell.
might as well stay home and listen.
The
to
farewell tour was. I'll always take this memory away with me on this one because it was just because we got one of the classic screw ups during the show. Where Ace goes to do his guitar solo, and he's doing his guitar solo, and he fires the rocket up into the ceiling, and the explosion happens behind him. He didn't notice. Everyone is just laughing, and he turns around and he notices the confetti already fallen down, and he kind of looks and he starts laughing too. So he just keeps going, and he fires in the opposite direction again. Bomb goes off behind him. Audience goes batshit crazy. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You think that tech guy could control like which side
one
to
goes.
blow?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh shit, he's facing the other way.
Yeah. It's not that fucking hard.
And then you got to think of all the TV guest spots that they were doing at this time
a lot
too.
of that. I mean, that continued straight on to Psycho Circus, and we'll talk about that.
Was there appearance on Mad TV during that time?
Psycho Circus,
That was Psycho
yeah.
Circus. Okay.
Yeah. Same with Millennium.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was mostly the tour, I think.
Mostly the
reunion
tour.
That was mostly what they were concerned with.
But can you imagine? Like, no other band, I think, up to that point had gone on tour for that long a period. Can you name me another band that went for nearly 365 days?
I can't, but I guarantee it's happened. Like, I mean,
At some point.
marathon tours happen all the time.
Okay.
But, yeah.
It was a pretty insane amount of dates for
Yeah.
a
Because, I
band
mean-
of that age.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think,
no,
in
that's a
production
good
that
point.
big.
I mean,
It's
around
pretty
this
tough.
time, the Stones were touring hard too. Like,
Yeah.
Voodoo Lounge was a couple of years before this.
94, 95,
Yeah.
something like that.
But I mean, just the sheer amount of gear that they had to haul from place
Yeah.
to place.
Well,
Right.
that Kiss has always been like that, though. I mean, they've got.
Well, I
lots of
guess then you
experience
have to
with
be
that.
thankful for not having much of a fucking stage at all.
Yeah.
Right?
They had to think practically, what
Yeah.
can we carry and what are we going to bring?
Yeah.
But and if you wanted to compare it to, like, if they're trying to recreate the feel of the 70s,
Yeah.
then you probably wouldn't have nearly as much stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, right? You're going to recreate
Yeah,
that.
but the
you're going to
stages-
recreate that show.
The stages of the 70s were way more elaborate and interesting
Well,
than they were on this
okay.
tour.
Well.
Like,
Do you think
yeah,
those
they
Marshall amps are all empty too?
one of those the fake walls.
The fake walls that they had. But I mean, I kind of miss the fact that I didn't get to see, the initial reunion.
Yeah.
I was excited because it was like, wow, Kiss is reuniting. This will be a great one-off sort of thing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it kind of carried on, where it kind of felt like, well, what else are you guys going to do?
Exactly.
But it's sort of like it's this carry-on thing of we have to honor the band now and honor its legacy.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's almost exact. I mean, when you happened in '96, you got to think 20 years ago at that point, Destroyer had come out and Rock and Roll
true.
Over.
Yeah.
People know them for that era.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, it's 20 years now. We got to give them their just dues. Let's
Okay.
say.
Speaking of that, is it weird to anybody but me that they came back in the Love Gun costumes instead of the Destroyer costumes?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, maybe. I mean, technically, if you want to talk about the zenith of the band, I think
I guess Love Gun
Alive
financially
2
really is.
kind of like, the
But
peak.
Destroyer are far and away, as far as I'm concerned, they're the most remembered sort of classic Kiss
Costume.
costumes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why those were like the next in line.
Yeah.
That they
I guess.
reused them for Psycho Circus.
Yeah. Well, and then they fucking basically vaguely redesigned them after that. For Monster, but,
Vaguely redesigned.
Or not Monster, Sonic Boom.
That's all.
So is there any real dirt that happens on this tour? I mean,
Not that I fucking
it's
know
pretty
of,
well
but-
documented all the way
Just
through.
Ace being a fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
threatening to walk out. And
Yeah,
fucking quit.
he
and all this
doesn't.
kind of shit.
And yeah, of course, in his book, he paints himself as a
A saint?
throughout all of this. But like,
Well, they all met in like Gene's like little pool house or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Put the makeup on.
no.
Oh no! Wait, what?
this is the
But Ace walks in and he's like, I don't care what Peter's getting, but I want more. Because he's always felt that he's a more important member of the band than Peter is.
Well, you think about that.
So
I mean,
he wants more money than Peter. So
you got to think about that,
and,
though.
You know, and every
Ace,
time, any interview, anything, he always paints him and Peter as like
buds,
broskies, right? Like
broskies.
Like they're totally tight, right? But
evidently on that day they were.
Yeah.
So.
Oh boy, that kind of sucks, doesn't it?
Well, it's just.
Let's take a look at this footage we've got here. How much of it is their real hair?
Yeah.
Well, I know Ace had plastic surgery leading up to the tour.
Really?
Yeah.
I think there was a lot less real hair on the Psycho Circus tour afterwards.
I mean,
how
it's
do you-
pretty clear to me that Peter's wearing it. I mean, I think this is Peter's hair, but Psycho Circus, he's absolutely wearing a wig.
Now, what about Gene, though?
Gene's been wearing a wig since his fucking animal eyes, dude.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the top. Like, how do you do a top knot like that and still call it a wig?
Spirit gum.
Spirit gum.
Spirit gum.
Spiro gum.
That's the sort of joke you only laugh at after like 7 years.
Yeah.
But you look at the energy that people are just.
People were into it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no question. Like, it was, the one thing that I did like about this era is that it was kind of, for the first time in my life, I could, like, come out of the closet as a Kiss fan. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Because
And it always seemed like a few years too late for me because a lot of those grunge bands, if not all of them,
they all count
Yeah.
Kiss as
they were
influences.
huge Kiss fans.
Yeah.
And Kiss was selling shit
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
like the early 90s.
Yeah.
Where like we had that tribute album come out,
Kiss
Hard
My
to Believe. Hard to Believe.
Kid, do you have that? Because I only just found out about it recently.
I have it on cassette.
Do you?
Yeah.
I want to hear Kurt Cobain singing.
It's not that
Do
good.
You Love Me?
Okay.
No.
They love me!
Oh,
That's
God.
The
what you
Melvins,
get. Yeah.
La Volta.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Well, all
a
those
fucking
bands-
way hipper than thou Setlist at the time.
Yeah.
But, like,
Stone Temple Pilots doing
Yeah.
like a Kiss concert.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're doing a concert in Kiss
In
makeup.
Kiss makeup,
If
yeah.
you will. Nirvana being on that album.
So you're telling me that
It was
the
all-
grunge scene kind of prepped, I think, a lot of the younger audience
Maybe.
to kind of
to
itch for
accept
one of these
Kiss
shows.
as a,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But
Okay.
even though those bands in the early 90s, the grunge bands were like so huge.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while they did point a finger to Kiss, but it didn't really count until
Yeah.
the reunion tour.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
They
yeah.
pick it
I mean,
back on.
like, sure, in Guitar Player magazine, they'd talk about
Yeah.
what an influence Kiss was or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Or
It wa-
contributions to like the Kiss My Ass album.
yeah,
or,
exactly.
like,
But it wasn't
94,
until
it was like,
the reunion tour that, like, you would hear in Spin magazine.
yeah.
About what a big influence Kiss was.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Spin, of course, Spin was pretty close with Kiss at the time for doing they did the
four
four
covers,
covers, which
yeah.
was the biggest thing they'd ever done at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you quadruple your sales? They take
Well-
a page out of comic book merchandise and say, yeah, we put a different cover on every one and people will buy 4 of them. Awesome.
But in the end, I guess they printed like 60% Gene, and then like
That makes sense.
the rest is split up between the rest.
Yeah.
Like
members
20,
of the
20,
band.
and 20 for
Yeah.
really, yeah.
Ace threatened to quit over that cover. Actually, he
What?
held it up and he was like, "I hate this. I fucking quit."
That's a really good picture of Ace. On that
It's all pretty funny pictures of them that they picked. I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't like the straight deadpan
Yeah.
kind of like look they had for the solo albums.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was all kind of like goofy looks. But
yeah.
Ace,
Well, not goofy, but
Ace
like
apparently
in
fucking
character.
hated his. So
I keep
Whatever.
trying to picture it because most of the time you can't see Ace without the glasses on now. Any interviews he does or whatever.
Oh, yeah, he's always
Sunglasses.
got his
He looks like a member of ZZ Top now.
yeah.
and I
ZZ Top's uncle.
I'm just trying to picture him right now wearing the makeup, but he's got the sunglasses on.
Like the cover of Anomaly.
kind
I
of.
guess.
Yeah.
The farewell tour was cool, and I mean, the venue we were in and everything, it was a packed house. But just being in that sea of people, I don't think I could have done that.
It was an important moral
it proved to the world.
financial inject in the ass for Kiss.
It proved to the world that Kiss still mattered.
Yeah.
And it proved to Kiss that Kiss still mattered too, right? Like they've been, trying to play catch up for 10 years at this point.
And when I talk, when you listen to like Gene and Paul talk about the reunion tour and how they didn't consider it inevitable.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty surprising to me because as a Kiss fan, I always thought that it was.
It's like you said before. It's the ace in the hole. It's
there's too much money to be made not to fucking do it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it kind of
happened
naturally is kind of unusual.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was more of a thing of just. You gotta. It's like you said before. Like when you're like in professional wrestling, when you're in the bubble, you don't see it.
It's true.
Yeah.
And then honestly, if they were constantly putting out albums like 2 every year, for that long, and then they make a decision saying we're never putting the makeup back on again, and you try to stick to your guns on that, and you stick to your guns for as long as bloody possible, until finally your back's against the wall and you say, fine, okay, we'll do it. And when they do it, it's like, wow. Well, we thought of that idea.
I wonder, it must have felt like kind of caving in to Paul in particular.
Yeah, I could see that. Because,
Gene, I guess.
To me,
Gene was like...
Gene was against taking the makeup off to begin with. But
well, yeah, of course, because what's...
Yeah. Well,
what is he without it?
Do?
Go watch the Lick It Up episode.
Yeah, go watch the Lick It Up episode if you want to hear about that. To do a throwback show like this, especially on like a 20-year anniversary kind of thing, does make sense.
It does.
Financially, a big thank you to the fans.
Yeah.
It did need to happen. It was going to happen, and I'm glad it did happen. Though Dez doesn't seem to feel that way. So.
Well, I knew it was going to happen at some point.
What rendition of Kiss? Do you have a different disc?
No.
This is the Japanese release of You Are.
Yeah. It's got the bonus track, New York Groove from Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, boo. Mine doesn't have that at all.
I don't know. That's about all.
It was going to happen. Yeah, me too. It was going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
It was, and it did happen. But for me, I was disappointed that
they took a step backwards.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was going to be that much longer to wait for new material because it was like great. Revenge came out. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And then Alive 3, Kiss My Ass. And then
you were like, wait, when's the new
Reunion,
stuff?
The Unplugged.
They tease you with Dead.
I'm like, I want to hear something new.
If you want to talk about the compilation for You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best.
In terms of the compilation.
In terms of the stuff that they chose?
Yeah.
I would have chosen different stuff.
What would Dez's You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best have included?
Like Detroit Rock City, Love Gun, shit
I don't know
like
if they're
that,
purposely like
Ladies' Room, I think, would have been in there. I think Ladies' Room would have totally been in there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Deuce isn't on here. Strutter's not on
but
here.
at the same time, I think that was sort of... I kind of appreciate that the same old songs aren't on this one.
Yeah.
That it's...
Yeah, I guess.
It is Ladies' Room and it is Two-Timer and, the less known Kiss songs. The Kiss songs that the fans love.
Yeah.
Parasite kicks ass.
Parasite, yeah.
I got more of an appreciation for that song the more I listened to it.
Did you ever hear the
Firehouse on here? Really? Firehouse?
Oh, wow.
I'm probably the only guy in this room that likes that song.
That is true.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I like that song.
I like the...
I like the lead in I like the lead in from how they do it on Alive, where it goes from Hotter Than Hell right into Firehouse.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think that's very awesome.
Yeah.
But
Rock Bottom? Rock Bottom?
Come on, Rock Bottom, Dad.
I've always been a favorite of mine.
Come on, that's a staple.
I don't know. I probably would have popped in Come On Love Me.
You know what? As much as that one, I like it, but the mix for me on a live too just sounds too distorted.
Come On and Love Me?
Yeah, it just sounds too distorted. And
It's been too long since I listened to that.
it's just.
I mean, at least they did something that had something new on it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a compilation of like stuff from Alive 1
That's
and
true.
Alive 2.
At least we got a couple of songs.
You got
Yeah.
some new shit on there.
Yeah.
So,
Because Take Me was just that was awesome.
Take Me
Yeah.
always awesome.
And as for the actual design of the CD itself, with the weird neon
It's very,
colors and everything, that's interesting because later prints of that didn't have that cover, didn't have that plastic.
The case, you
The
mean?
casing,
Like with
yeah,
the red and the green.
It was all clear.
really?
Yeah,
Without that, though, it's just basically the cover of the originals. Like, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
a little bit, yeah, isn't it?
At the end of the day, I was just happy to get something new.
yeah,
And that was the only thing you got new
pretty much.
because they also released the greatest hits compilation,
Yeah.
right? Greatest Kiss
Greatest Kiss.
in two
Yeah.
different versions.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think around that
overseas,
same
but-
time, they also released Carnival of Souls as the final sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want to learn more about the wonderful Alive worldwide reunion tour, try and dig up yourself a copy of Metal Edge's Kiss Alive, the official collector's special edition,
Or go to Kiss FAQ.
or go to Kiss FAQ, or go to Kiss Online,
Yeah.
or go to Kiss Asylum, or
Yeah.
go to
One of many
different Kiss venues out there.
Shout out.
You know, Podkissed, I'm sure they must have talked about it at some point. So
They talked about You Want the Best, You Got the Best on the
Oh, the
compilation.
compilation
Conundrum.
Conundrum.
compilation
That's a good
conundrum.
episode.
If we wanted to summarize this up, this was ultimately Peter's time to shine.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter's time to
And
shine.
Ace's time to be a prick.
Even though in every interview he comes off, he says the same. Well, maybe that's why
Well,
he's
in
a
his
prick.
book, yeah, he says like that. Yeah, that was the thing. It made me fucking like I couldn't believe it. In his book, he said, "I know I could have, maybe fought for some more money, but it was bad for the band, and bad for the fans, and I just wanted to, I was getting good enough. It was good enough for me."
Yeah.
Whereas, like, and you listen to Gene's point of view is, he was just like nothing was good enough for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's funny in the Jay Leno interview on the compilation where they talk about how Paul mentions it's like everyone has their own idea as to how it ended. You got four different perspectives on how the band ended.
Yeah.
How the split happened, and now that we're all back with everyone's straight, clear-headed, and it just feels perfect
right.
now.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
but I
this was
will
on
agree.
beer instead of champagne.
Yeah. I'll agree, though. I think when he says that everyone has their own perspective on how it ended,
Yeah.
it's not just four guys. I think it's every member of the Kiss Army has got a
That's
different,
true. That's a good
different reason of why it ended and why they split. And it's never going to be fully answered in any capacity because these guys are media moguls that will spin it the way they want
And
it.
each one is more full of shit than the other.
There you go.
And we love them anyway. And speaking of the end, I think that's the end of this episode.
That is probably going to be the end of this. That's the end of the reunion, folks. Stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe us here on YouTube.
Leave us a comment. What was your favorite part about the reunion tour?
Hey,
What was your least favorite part?
give us a comment. Send us a video response. Anything. We're waiting to hear from you.
See you later.